Welcome to day 4 of MetalWeen, and today I have something very special planned. We are going to be taking a look at my all-time favorite slasher villain, Chucky. Chucky is one of the most unique slashers in all of film history. He's not a very usual slasher, considering he's only a knee-high killer doll, but you'd be surprised at how much damage he can cause. So I decided to compile my top 10 favorite moments from all 6 of his movies. So let's get things started. Number 10, Ade Due Dambola from Child's Play 1. It was initially tough to figure out which one to put on here. I was considering going for a resurrection scene, but I decided to go with the one that started it all, when Chucky actually transferred his soul into the doll to begin with. Charles Ray, as his human form is known, is on the run from the cops, and he decides to seek refuge in a toy store. However, he gets shot by one of the officers, leading him to find something to transfer his soul with in order to escape death. He finds a good guy doll, which is one of the hottest toys of the Christmas season, and so he decides to transfer his soul into that, blowing the entire place up. This is one of the coolest scenes in the movie, and it really lets you know just how desperate Charles Ray is to escape death. It's a pretty good one. Number 9, Just Look at Us Now, from Bride. Of course, we had to have at least one moment from Bride on here. And this one is a bit odd to put on here, but I just really like this scene. In this one, Chucky initially rocks out the white zombie, which is great enough in itself, but then Chucky actually apologizes to Tiffany for everything he's done to her. And the two just have a talk about how Tiffany wanted to be with Chucky and how they wanted to travel the world someday. And it's a really cool, mellow scene. And it highlights not just the chemistry between Chucky and Tiffany, but between actors and actress Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif as well. I just really like this scene. It's a very cool little scene. And it really just shows kind of how ridiculous the whole premise is anyway, with the two laughing about it later on. It's a pretty cool, mellow little scene. Number 8, Toying with the Owner, from Child's Play 3. In Child's Play 3, Chucky is resurrected by having him build a brand new doll. And Mr. Sullivan, the owner of Play Pals, which invented the good guy dolls, who invented the good guy dolls, and he's given the brand new good guy doll of the 90s, the first good guy dolls of the 90s. However, it turns out to be Chucky. And in his little office, home, whatever, Chucky decides to escape from his box and use all the toys that he made against him, finally resulting in strangulation, which results in one of my favorite Chucky lines.
Just like the good old days. Nothing like a strangulation to get the circulation going.
That's pretty cool. All in all, the scene does take a while to get started. It's about 9 minutes or so, but that entire 9 minutes is pretty good. It's a slow burn, which is always a special treat in horror movies. It really does show you just how calculated Chucky is in his assaults. Number 7, Chawed Chucky, from Child's Play 1. This is another iconic moment from Child's Play, and in some ways it could very well be the most iconic moment of the series, of the first film. In it, Chucky has just been burned alive. However, he turns out to still be alive, and just slowly stalks after Andy. This is a pretty terrifying scene, just because of how scary Chucky is. I wasn't even born when this came out, but it still somehow frightened me on a bit of a small level. I couldn't imagine how this frightened kids who watched it. It's a pretty grim looking scene, and the design of the burned Chucky is just absolutely magnificent. It's definitely one of the most iconic scenes in the first film, without a doubt, as well as the entire series. Number 6, Jaw Dropper, from Curse. Curse was a welcome change of pace from the previous two. While the previous two, Bride and Seed, were more comedy than horror, this one goes back to its horror roots, but it might be a little bit darker than the first three. In it, Ian tapes up Nika after he thinks that Nika killed the priest and Barb. Unfortunately for Ian, it doesn't exactly work out for him so much. He watches on a hidden camera that he hid in Chucky's overalls, looking for hints on whether or not Nika killed him. However, Chucky ends up pushing Nika's wheelchair to actually flip him around, to actually flip him over, and Chucky then comes and does this. That is pretty awesome. And the gore in here is much more gorier than it had been in previous films. In some ways, it's probably the goriest film of the series. And this one is no exception. This scene is just absolutely brilliant. And it's probably one of the best death sequences I've ever seen in a horror movie, which is definitely saying something. It's very creative, and Chucky enjoys it very much. Number 5, Teacher's Death from Child's Play 2.